course, politicians love polls. We know they do. They just say that there's only one to look at. But Frank Luntz, you conducted polls for Newsnight that propelled David Cameron from oblivion to party leader. And it's been asked many times whether you played kingmaker for Cameron or if you simply spotted a trend that already existed. Which was it?
The embarrassing thing, and this will be the first time I've ever admitted it, I didn't even know what he looked like. The day that I did the session, I had never seen him. I had a transcript of what he had said because I was trying to pick clips so voters could react to it accurately. And I put him up there, and someone says, that's David Cameron. And I said, he's too young to be the leader. That was my initial reaction was, they're going to choose, maybe not Kenneth Clark, maybe not someone that old. You know,
He'll be delighted to hear you say that.
They want someone basically born this century. But my first reaction was the Tory and our voters there who were sitting there, and you showed it briefly, were older. The typical Tory vote is older, and I figured that he'd be too young for them. I was shocked at how they responded, but two reasons why. Number one is he didn't use notes. He did not read a speech. Every other politician gets up, and they're reading. He delivered it from the heart. And number two, he gave credit to Tony Blair. It wasn't just a slash and burn. And the British public is tired of these divisions. They're tired of the anger that seems to be expressed in every speech, that everything the Tories have done is wrong, that everything Labour has done is wrong. They want someone who could find that sensible centre, and that's what they liked in David Cameron.
Well, I mean, the centre ground is what every politician says that they're after. How do you think, then, that David Cameron has developed his brand since that time, since that point?
It's interesting to me to watch his communication style, because it is not as informal. And maybe you can't be as prime minister. Maybe you have to be a little bit more structured. But to see him attempt to redefine what it is to be a conservative was important over the last few years because the Conservative Party had a bad reputation. I don't believe that Conservatives won in 2010. I believe that Labour lost. And the group that was equally as decisive was the one that we did for the BBC, which showed that Gordon Brown could have been re-elected if he had gone within the first 100 days.
Right, but that's tactics, isn't it, to some extent? And do you think Labour...
It's not tactics, though, because people's minds change. And Gordon Brown did not demonstrate that he was a leader. Here's how focus groups work. They walked in and they all supported Brown at the beginning. They felt, let's give him the British try. Let's give him his own chance to lead.
And he was a change from Tony Blair.
And which they appreciated. By the time they watched him, after an hour and a half of various footage, they already had enough. And so that taught us that timing is everything.
What about Ed Miliband then now? I mean, the Labour Party is trying to adopt the tactics used by the Obama campaign, and people say, well, he doesn't compare very fairly, and we'll come on to Obama's popularity. But can it work here? Can any of that stardust work for Ed Miliband?
The first thing that I've learned is that Labour is spelled L-A-B-O-U-R, not O-R. And Americans have to understand that the language of British politics is not the same as America, that the expectations are not the same. And I'm not the kind of guy that wants to come over here and trash my country. But I will tell you that British voters are more sophisticated. They ask more detailed questions. Your shows like this one get into more substance. And so it is dangerous to have an American sensibility applied to British politics.
So why are so many politicians, why are David Cameron and Ed Miliband using American strategies? I mean, have you seen any evidence of David Axelrod on Labour's campaign?
I saw the language that he used on behalf of Miliband, and it sounded like he was giving the language of Barack Obama, which you pronounce Barack. You even say it differently over here than there.
Or maybe wrongly, I don't know.
But you have to be really careful. And it's the same thing with British consultants, because the British political elite goes to other countries and gives them advice. The key is to understand the civility of the population.
And do you think David Axelrod understands that here?
I think it takes years to understand. I went to school here. I went to Oxford for 3 years. And over the last 5 days, I've been working my way through 1980s and 1990s politicians. And even the stuff that I read in British publications is not necessarily accurate if you really want to understand the British people.
Who's going to win the 2015 election?
I can tell you why the Conservatives won't win, because they're not getting credit for the economy. I can tell you why Labour won't win, because Ed Miliband is not sufficiently respected as a leader. I can tell you why the Liberals aren't going to do as well, because there's just a disappointment with their performance in the coalition. I can tell you why each person is going to do badly, I can't give you a winner at this point.
Right. Do you think it'll be a coalition again? Do you think it'll be a hung parliament?
I believe it'll be a coalition again, but I don't know who leads the coalition. And I will tell you one thing, which makes me very sad. The level of cynicism in Britain seems to be at an all-time high. And now you've got this child abuse scandal. It's tragic. This is the cradle of democracy for the entire globe. And I would want to see the population proud of what British institutions have done globally. Instead, they're cynical, it's dark, and it's depressing. And we've got the same thing in America.
And if you take that cynicism that you're talking about, some people may argue that has helped the rise of UKIP, UK Independence Party. Do you agree with that? Do you see echoes of the Tea Party in UKIP?
I see tremendous similarities. The level of anger, the level of disappointment, the level of fear that the country that they knew is disappearing. But the key for the politicians, particularly the party leaders, is to speak with incredible clarity. Put aside the notes, put aside the talking points, and tell people not just what they think you want to hear, tell them exactly how you feel and why. Simplify it, clarify it, and most importantly, give voters the chance to be heard. And that means don't respond to questions, ask questions. I'm waiting for the political leaders here in this country to hold town halls like we do in America. But what's different? Ask your constituents questions. Don't just answer them. The more that you hear them, their voice, their emotions, their passion, the better the political person you'll be.
All right, let's leave it there.